Good evening, race fans, and welcome to weekend 4 of the Hertzheimer Racing League. Tonight we will have 2 laps of the Sand and Sequoia route in Watopia, and that'll take us around a total of about 43 kilometres. First off, I'd like to pass on some very good wishes to our dear friend Ed Finney, who sadly can't be with us today following a fairly horrific bicycle accident a couple of days ago, where he's managed to break his eye socket, his nose, 2 fingers, and a couple of other smaller fractures on his skull. So, Ed, if you're listening, we wish you the very, very best and hope you have a very speedy recovery. But in the meantime, let's just switch over to Gordon Sloan, who's following the D's tonight.
Good evening. Yeah, we'll be following the D's tonight. So this week it's going to be Ian McClaverty here, who's racing in the D. Looks like we've got about 20 to 30 riders in the D, so looking forward to this. Hopefully we'll be up against Steve Wilder, which is he's won the previous 3 weeks of this event, the Hertzheimer League. So hoping for a good battle between these two and a few others in between. But it's a bit of a long course today, but we've got a nice flat start, so we'll see how we get on. I'm not expecting any fireworks early, but it should be a good head-to-head, hopefully, between these two. With the rest of the field will be chasing and trying to get points on the primes and the KOMs and sprints. So yeah, looking forward to a good race tonight. Yeah.
Excellent news. So just quickly on the primes, we're going to get off to a very fast start, hopefully, with the first sprint actually inside the lead-in at 1.8 kilometres. That'll be 500 metres. Then we've got the first KOM over Titans Grove at 12.8 to 15.4. Second sprint is at 22.2 kilometres. The second KOM is at 33.1 to 35.7. And then we're going to have a finish line at 43.1k. There will be no sprint on the final lap, just because Zwift doesn't always record the times when the sprint and the finish line coincide. So I believe we must be off in Cat D.
We are off in Cat D. So we've had a fast start as normal, but not a sprint out the gates. They're probably doing 3 to 4 watts at the moment. But I don't expect really anyone to pull away from this group unless possibly they're not a Cat D rider, because it'd be so hard to break away from the group on the desert. So I suspect a fairly gentle-ish start up to the sprint, and then that's probably the first chance to get away if someone does sprint. I suspect some of the riders that aren't going for the primes will maybe just cruise through that sprint section, so we might see a wee bit of a split then. But Ian's made a good start at the moment. He's sitting in 10th, but as I said, no one's got away from this group, so I suspect this whole group of looks like 20 riders will probably just cruise straight through this sprint section, and then we'll see how they split up after that. But I can see in there, trying to see where Steve is as well. Steve was threatening not to race because he went up the Alp earlier today, so I'll see if I can spy him at the moment. But give this a couple of minutes, and then we'll be hitting the sprint and see how we get on in a moment.
Good news. So in the C's today, I'm following actually Ed's wife, Maureen Finney, and she'll be looking to hang on during the flats, and then seeing if she can get a few seconds gap on the fairly short climbs we've got. The Titans Grove, I think, averages around about 4%, and it's fairly rolling. There's definitely a decent bit of climbing there as well. But we have 3 minutes 10 to go until we start on the C. So I'm just going to quickly pass over to Lee Levy, who's going to be following our featured rider in the B category.
How you doing, guys? Tonight I'm going to be keeping an eye on Stuart Barrington, and I'll also have an eye on one of my favorite riders, Max Schmansky. He's raced all 3 of our races, and he's in the top 10, I believe, in overall point standings. So Stuart's only run 2 races. This is his 3rd, so it'll be interesting to see if he can make up some gap. I expect that the 2 of them should run towards the front. We do have a pretty good group of Bs in tonight, and I'll be following it on Zwift Power as well.
Gordon, we must be pretty close to the first sprint now.
We are, yeah. We're probably maybe a good 400, 500 meters from the sprint, but yeah, we'll be hitting that in the moment. I expect Ian has normally got a pretty decent sprint on him, so I'm sure he'll have a good go at that. Probably just look to get towards the back of this group so you can try and hit them through the sprint, because I suspect it'll be a split. Some of them will go for the sprint, some won't. It's always hard to tell with these herd racing leagues, because some riders are just going for the GC, so they don't really hit the primes quite as hard as the rest of us. But at the moment, yep, this group's still holding together absolutely perfectly. Ian's sitting probably in about 6th wheel at the moment, so just coming round the corner to hit this sprint, which I think it's awful calling it a sprint. It's about 500 metres. It's anything but a sprint. It's a chore to get through this, trying to put down the power for that long. I mean, you're looking at sort of 30 plus seconds if you go at full gas. I mean, Ian's off there, third wheel, doing sort of 5 or 6 watts. Probably going to try and ramp it up, but at the moment, no one's really going with him. He's breaking away off the front, so I'll give him. But I mean, he's only 200 metres into the sprint. It is a really long one, so he certainly looks like he's putting down the most power, and I suspect he'll take maximum points on this one. But there's a few coming along behind him, and then it just depends whether after the sprint whether it'll stick and he'll stay away with some riders or they'll group back up, which I suspect, given that it's quite a flat course, unless he fancies really going at it, a TT effort, he is going to group back up with some riders behind. But he's just gone through in 38 seconds, which is a pretty good time. I can see the riders coming in behind, 40 plus seconds, so pretty sure would have taken a first place on that. So good effort there from Ian, and a bit of relax now till he comes round at Titans Grove before we hit the KOM.
Great start from Ian. We're still 35 seconds away for the C start here. Looks like it's a decent sized field. We've got 41 riders in here, and I'm sure we'll see some familiar faces as we go on as well. You can see we've got the 2 Aussie Bens, Alan Cheville's in there, Scott Anderson, Lisa Jones. I think I saw Larry Japson in the lineup as well. So good field. And we're now 10 seconds away, and looking forward to seeing how the C's get on, and then we'll sit tight for probably what's going to be about, I'd say, an hour and 10. Probably an hour and 10 minutes of racing. But here we go, off the line, and everyone is away. Not a crazy start. I mean, a fairly strong start. Marine was holding about 5-6 watts a kilo just there. But she's mid-pack. Got one off the front, but I don't expect that to stick. I can see Dennis Wade just in front Maureen as well. And everyone looks like they're going to stay together. Don't appear to have any real splits, apart from maybe 3 riders off the front, but that could well come back again. Gordon, how's Ian doing with these? Is he keeping in front?
Yes, although the gap's closed slightly, he's got a 4-second lead over probably. It must be a group of about 10 riders, I would have thought, as it's coming down. It's 3 seconds now, so he's still going at a fairly decent pace, but certainly not pushing the power for Cat D at the moment. But so I suspect he'll get caught up. I mean, it's a long old slog from here if you want to try and keep away. As you suggested, they are expecting probably around about an hour and 10 minutes for the Cat Ds, so maybe even a bit longer if you're out there on your own. So I think it's a good plan. Wait up for the rest of the group, and because certainly the next time you come through the desert, doing that sprint on your own's not advisable. Certainly the draft will give you a big advantage. So there's a gap closing down to it's 1 second now. So this group will all merge back together with about 10 or 12 riders, and then I think it'll just be a bit of a team time trial through the desert till we hit the Titans Grove, which again might prove harder to stick together on that one as it is rolling before the KOM, and obviously riders will be hitting the KOM hard for getting maximum points on that. But he's holding out in front, but he's certainly not pushing top power for a Cat D. I know he's got more in him, so I think he's quite rightly just waiting for the group behind to catch. So sounds like a good plan. But yeah, back to you, James. How the C's doing? They must be approaching the sprint, I would have thought, fairly soon.
Yeah, not far away. We've got about 500 metres. So just entered into the little loop before we get the sprint banner, which will signify that there's 500 metres of sprinting to the little cavern banner at the end of that. But we are just coming to the end of a loop, and then we'll see how we go. The bunch is really, really, really tight, and everyone's regrouped. No one off the front at all yet. But we'll see what happens with the sprint and see if that blows things up a little bit. But yeah, just coming up to the sprint line very shortly. Here it is, and off we go. So Marine's just holding steady, but pushing out some decent numbers, mid 300s, 400s. Oh, she's definitely having a good crack here. Got a couple of riders just behind. Got a TT, an American rider, who's just gone past her, and she's trying to hang on to his back wheel and doing a great job so far. Dennis Wade, Ben Poynton's having a big dig as well. Looks like he might actually take it for the line. Hard to see all the other riders going past. Marine's still hanging around in about third place, just going over the line and crosses in third and takes the sixth spot in the sprint at 36.04. Got M. Fuller, I think it's Martin, 35.24. Paul Lutman, 35.70, TT, 35.90, Alan Chevel, 35.91, and Benny Poynton, 35.92 of Marine just behind. So great sprint start of a race. And Lee Levy, the bees must be setting off pretty shortly.
Yeah, we still have just a little bit over a minute before the bees take off. Looks like everybody's just pacing in, so I'm sure the power is going to start ramping up. We're now right at 50 seconds.
Gordon, the D's all back together?
They are all back together, so we're in the sort of I don't know what you call it, the oasis bit in the middle part of the desert, which I mean, Ian's just sitting quite happily in this group. As I look at him, he's doing 1.6, so he's certainly not pushing out, and I don't think anyone in this group really has any incentive to push, to be honest. It looks like we've got about 20 riders in Cat D tonight. We've got this front group, and then the sort of chase group, as I'd call it, I suppose, is about a minute back, but I don't expect any of that group will catch up with this main front lead group. So at the moment, we've got about 12 riders. As I said, not really any incentive to push away. We've still got a long way to go, and on the flat, it's so hard to get away from a group. So you might as well wait for Titans Grove, but he's just sitting in. Looks like he's pretty comfortable, but got a few more herd riders in here as well, I can see. But looking good at the moment as he comes out. The only interesting next point will be probably when the Cat C. It'll be interesting when they catch. That could be a good opportunity to get the jump on your fellow D riders if they catch them at the right time and give a good draft, particularly for the sprint. And we saw with the C riders there, they were doing it in, low 30 seconds. So that would certainly help to get a good sprint through the draft for any of these riders. But at the moment, the Cat C's, I suspect, are probably still 3 or 4 minutes back, and on a flat won't be catching too quickly. So we shall see. But yeah, looking good at the moment with D's just sitting in the group. I don't expect much action really until we hit Titans Grove, and then the rollers start. Gives a bit of an opportunity to have a dig if you want to try and get away.
Lee Levy, how's the start for the bees gone?
All right, the bees just let off about 20 seconds ago. It's fairly tight together here. First to, I would say, 30th is pretty darn tight. Watching Stewart, he's putting out about 360 watts, and he's running in the middle of the pack currently at 17. So these guys are going to throw down some power, and I'm expecting the watts to go through the roof when they hit the sprint coming very, very quickly.
Yep, so the C's are just coming up to 4.5 kilometres. We did have a rider about 5 seconds off front, but that's all been pulled back in again. So we've got still a big group. I'd say probably at least 15 riders, maybe as many as 20. Marines right in the thick of things. Coming up towards 5k with the first climb, I think it was just over 12. First climb's 12.8, so we'll go round the roundabout the end of Tempest Fugit, around about 9 kilometres, and then we will climb up into the forest, and then we won't be far away from the KOM start. Gordon, how far on are the Ds now?
So we're about 7.3 kilometres, which I think by my calculations they're still 2 or 3 ahead of the C's, so they're looking good. I said coming up to that sort of 9 kilometre turnaround in the desert, and then we'll head up to Titans Grove before hitting the rollers, I suppose I call them, and then we hit the KOM, which KOM in this one's a bit of a long one. So I think it starts about 12.8 kilometres all the way up to 15.4. So, and it's not all uphill. There's a bit of a roll to it to start. So I suspect riders will pick up the pace and then push that last point, see who they can get with over the top of that. But yeah, looking good. 7.6 kilometres now, which I can see some of the C's starting to appear on the board, but they still look to be over 4 minutes behind. So I don't suspect we'll see them possibly if they catch maybe by the KOM or over the top of the KOM. It could be a good opportunity for the Ds to get some draft out back into the desert and really try and split up this group, which I think by the end of this group will be all over the place, just drafting any riders they can. I don't suspect this group will hold together, but looking absolutely fine at the moment. Just sticking together as we've got one rider just 1 second off the front, trying to do 3.8. So whether that's a breakaway or not, but I don't think it's going to stick. It's just so hard on this flat course to get away. It's impossible unless you sort of hold high 3s to 4 watts. I mean, he's doing 3.5 watts off the front, but the gap's just not going anywhere. So, no, looking good at the moment. We'll be into Titans Grove probably within the next 5 minutes, and then we'll see what action happens.
Yeah, so Marine was actually leading the pack out from a good sort of 15-20 seconds, then had a bit of a nosebleed and then came back into the pack, and she's currently sitting on the back of a group of, I think it's a group of 22. Just seeing our first D up front that we'll be catching on to very shortly, but we're just over 6 kilometers now, and about 3 to the roundabout and 6.5 to the first climb. Lee Levy, what happened in the sprint?
Sprints were, as we would expect, pretty stout. There was a lot of orange. I didn't see any red numbers, but there was a lot of orange numbers all the way up to 10 watts per kilogram. Max took third place. Stewart took 10th place at 37.35. Currently, now we're just running through the desert, and Stewart just hanging out around 3.5 watts per kilogram. So they're settling in now and heading towards the KOM. And I imagine that the group is going to stay fairly organized together. I don't think there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of jostling. I think that the power is going to stay about the same, and then it's just going to explode going uphill, and you'll see the difference between the climbers and the racers get exposed pretty quickly.
Thanks, Lee. Gordon, whereabouts are you guys?
Another couple of kilometres up the road, 9.2. So, don't know what you'd really call this section. We're just approaching the turnarounds, probably another 500 to a kilometre up here. So, exactly as we were before. Let me just have a quick count of the riders. I reckon we've got about 10 riders in this group. And looking back the way, I mean, the group behind, the gap's grown down to approaching 2 minutes. So, looks like we've certainly got our front sort of 10 riders here in this group, and Ian's sitting here quite comfortable at the moment, bouncing around between 2.5 watts per kilo. So I know he's definitely got more energy than that. So probably doing the right thing, staying with the group, and then waiting for Titans Grove as we see. The C riders, they are catching, but the gap is still holding over 4 minutes. So I don't suspect they'll get near them till at least we hit the KOM, and then we might see some riders up ahead. But just as we're passing the turnaround, as it ramps up a wee bit, we'll see if anyone has a wee bit of a go on this hill. That's probably the first opportunity to make any gap, because there's just no chance on this hill. But looking good at the moment, and still on 0%, just as it's starting to ramp up. We'll just give it a second, see if anyone pushes even slightly. And see Ollie Kobyleski on the front, but they've ramped up a wee bit. They're doing 3. I actually see some 4s up here, so it'll be interesting to see. They might manage to drop 1 or 2 riders here if they keep this pace up, but they're not going crazy up this hill. I think it will stick together for the moment till we hit the rollers, and then see how we get on. But yeah, how far back are the C's? We're at 10.1 now. Does it look like the C's are going to start catching quickly?
Exactly 2 kilometres, and I think one of our earlier checkpoints were about 2.5. So they're definitely closing in, and I think we'll expect to see them close quite a bit quicker when we hit the actual hills. But obviously, we'll see how it pans out. But so a quick note of Maureen and people around her. So she's right next to Alan Chevel. She's currently sat in 12th place in this group of 20 or so. A few other familiar names there. See Paul Lutman and Scott Anderson right next to Maureen, and Ben Poynton's there as well. And we are just going through the little sort of slightly rampy, grassy bit. I don't know what you'd actually call it, but you actually get about a 2% hill, which is about as much as you'll see around here at all. But once we get through this section, we'll then head towards a roundabout. So we will be climbing before too long. Lee Levy, is it as you were in the Bs?
Yeah, it's still situation normal. Everybody's grouped up really tight. When 1 second you're in 5th place and another second you're in 21st place. So it's pretty tight, and the power is pretty even across the board. Every now and then you'll take a small breather and get blown by, but nobody's really dropped off this main group here. Everybody's kind of sticking together. We got Stewart now is sitting around the 3rd to 7th area, so they're just starting to now get in sight of some of the Sea Riders in front of them.
Yeah, we're at 9.5k in the seas.
Now we're at 3.8 miles. Sorry, I'm American.
Unfortunately, no one knows what you're talking about, so we'll quickly switch over to Gordon for some kilometer action.
Yeah, so we're now at 11.1. So hopefully we'll work out where that is. We did start to lose 1 or 2 riders on the uphill up to Titans Grove, and it is starting to string out now. I mean, Ian's back and forth wheel. I can see a rider 6 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds ahead. So they are certainly starting to split up. A few of them are familiar herd riders I can see up here. CT, I'm not quite sure the actual full name of that. And there's also Brian Moran I was looking at, although technically is a Cat C, so I believe he will get disqualified for entering as a Cat C.
CT is Courtney Trabon.
Okay, and she's up there doing well. And also John Richardson's hovering around, which is also going well in the league so far by my reckoning. He's about 7th in the league, which Ian at the moment is in 2nd place with 2 golds and a bronze. So certainly plenty of strong riders up here, but Brian, I believe, will get disqualified. It looks like he might have actually just got promoted the other day on a social ride, so good on him. But at the moment, yeah, Ian's he's sitting in 5th wheel now, so there's a few riders have gone off the front ahead of him, so whether he's aware of them or who they are, or if he's had a look at Zwift Power, he might be able to discount them if he decides that they're either not going for the primes or not worth chasing down. But hitting the rollers, but as expected, it's splitting out quite a bit here, and we'll start to see the Sea Riders approaching from behind. At the moment, the gap looks like it's down to under 3 minutes, so I suspect the Sea Riders will do the same here and hit the rollers hard, and that gap, looking at the moment, I reckon they probably will get caught on the KOM or possibly soon after. I don't see this D group holding out much longer than that at the moment, but another good opportunity though, if they can jump on the wheel, the Sea Riders, that will certainly pull out the gaps even further, any D Riders in front or behind. But yeah, how are the Seas? Have they started hitting the ramp up to Titans Grove yet?
Yep, they have done the climb out the desert towards Titans Grove, and we are just turning right onto the rollers right about now. So we'll be at the KOM banner in 2 kilometers time. Lee Levy, I'm sure the B riders have done some miles. We don't know what they mean, but whereabouts are they?
We are 4.9 miles in. We're just about to climb out of the desert. We do have one B's on a breakaway. Looks like he's a whole second up the road from the group, so I don't imagine that it's going to stick. But this group is just amazingly tight together. I mean, 5 miles isn't that far in, but as tight as this group is, it's pretty insane. So the power is pretty normalized across the board. Everybody's really running in the mid 3s, occasionally hitting up to the 4s, but we're just passing the Max Schmansky roller dog station, and we'll be climbing out of the desert here before too long. We're roughly about a minute behind the last C's, so they're going to start catching up to these guys, and I think that'll probably fuel the fire when they start seeing these the lower riders coming up on them, and they'll just start blasting up. But it'll be interesting to see how this group can hold together going up the hill.
And just for your information, Lee, and the rest of the world that deals in kilometers, the Bs are at about 8.8 kilometers at the moment. With
what are kilometers?
They're 1,000 meters each. The Cs are at 11.8k, which is 11,800 meters, and we are 1,000 meters away from the first classified climb. Gordon, have the Ds finished the first KOM?
That's a bit ambitious. That's certainly not finished the first KOM.
Started then.
I suspect they're not even halfway up this KOM. So I made the KOM start at 12.6, so maybe a couple hundred meters before we had noted down. But So Ian's he's pushing on. He's sort of doing high 2s to 3s up this KOM. It's a bit of a long one. It's probably going. I'm trying to think what the best time up it is, but it's probably a 6 or 7 minute climb for a Cat D rider. So you can't exactly go full gas up it. He is just pacing himself up this. And as I suggested earlier, he got dropped from a few riders, but he is closing that gap down now on the KOM. So looking at the KOM, it looks like he's probably going to have a good time with the Ds. I don't see any other Ds that are quite pushing the way he is. This front group is pushing, but he's catching them, so I suspect he'll get an overall better time than them. So looking back the way, we can now see the C riders starting to filter in, about 2.5 minutes behind. So it could be very close by the time we hit the top of this KOM. He might get over the top of it just on his own, but just as he passes the front few riders, I think this is going to put him into first, is it on D? He's sitting in second wheel at the moment, but yeah, he's back to right at the front. So he's just about 14k in, and probably not really started the main part of the KOM. The lower section is actually sort of quite rolling. It doesn't get too steep to the last couple of bends and climbs. So he's still going 14k in. Started at 12.6, so I made it. So if it goes up to 15.4, he's still got another K, which will probably take another 4 or 5 minutes, I would have thought. Maybe a wee bit under. But yeah, the C's must be approaching the KOM as well. Is it in sight?
Yep, no, we're well onto the KOM now. On my screen, it started at 12.7, and I think it's a 2.5 kilometer climb or there or thereabouts. And yeah, I think the finish of the KOM is about 15.2, 15.3. So I think 6 minutes will be a very good time. We'll have to see how many of these the C riders go underneath that. But Maureen is currently ninth wheel. Everyone is still grouped up. But as Gordon was saying, the first half of this climb's still quite rolling. You've got some ups and downs before you really get towards the sort of couple of hairpins towards the end where it sort of ramps up to about 6-7% and hangs around that for a while. But we've got a little bit of a way to go yet. I think Gordon, your guys have probably got about 2 or 3 minutes to go to the top, so we'll quickly switch over to Lee and get the miles update.
Well, the miles update is 6.8, which by my calculations has us just about 11 kilometers in. We're into the Titans Grove area, and we're just about to start taking that turn into the climbing section. So this group is still together. It's still about 21 deep. It's a little bit strung out, but I would say the difference from first to 21st is probably 3 seconds right now, maybe.
Gordon, what's going on with the Ds?
So the Ds are now into, I suppose, what we call the steeper part of the climb. Just coming around the last hairpin before it sort of weaves its way up to the top. It's only about 1% round that corner actually, so it's not too bad, but it soon ramps up to, I believe 4 or 5%, maybe even 6, and it's just like that all the way up to the top. So at the moment, Ian's sitting in third wheel, setting a good pace. I can see actually John Richardson and Ole chasing behind about 20 seconds back. So they're doing as well. Good times up this hill. I suspect Ian is probably going to get the KOM on this, unless the group behind really push up this last section, but we'll have to wait and see. But can see the seed numbers as well coming right down. I mean, it's just showing 1 minute 20 now, although it's always a bit misleading when on a climb. Times are always exaggerated out once you get over the climb. So we shall see. The C's are about 1 minute 20 back, which is probably about good timing. If you can find a C group to draft through the sprint, it'll be pretty good. But Ian's just hitting the KOM now at, I make it 15.2 kilometers to get his time up on the board, and 5 minute 50. So the 2 riders behind him were 5:58 just behind. I suspect that's going to be the best time up this KOM. We'll give it 30 seconds. I think John and Ole should be over as well, but I believe Ian started behind them, maybe even at the bottom. So looks like maximum points for the sprint and maximum points for the KOM for Ian. So he's looking very good so far in the race, and he's still leading it on the front. But yeah, how are the C's? Are they coming around that last bend yet? I mean, on the clock,
Yep,
it looks about a minute and a half.
Just coming around the last bend, and just to quickly touch back, that's an excellent time by Ian and the other front two Ds. But meanwhile, Marine is currently seventh wheel. Saw Lisa Jones up there as well, and I think we're into the last probably 200-300 meters of this climb. Marine currently in ninth, but very much in touch with all of her 8 riders just in front of her. So I think we've got just one more little turn to go, and then we'll have the 2 piles of rocks to signify the top of this climb, and we are just about there. And Marine puts a little sprint over the line, and she is currently sat in 7th spot with a time of 4:45, very respectable. See Ben Knopfling in 4th and 4:44.3, Lisa Jones 4:44.2. Alberto at 4:44.9, but up front is M Zapata with a 4:35.9. But Marine with 6th in the sprint and 7th in the climb, doing a great job points wise, and obviously she's looking set to pick up quite a few points in the general classification as well. Lee, how are things going for bees?
Bees are well into the KOM now. Stewart had a little bit of a fracture with that group, and he's found himself in a much smaller group of about 6 riders. He's currently in 22nd position, and we're at the roughly 13.5 kilometer mark. So this little group is attacking the KOM pretty hard, but they're well behind some of these guys in front, and some of the numbers in front are 4.7 and 5.1. So these bees are really putting it down. Looking on Swift Power currently, some of these guys are averaging 3.7 and 3.6 on the front. 4.0 is one guy. David Green is running 4.0 at the front. So I'm sure there's going to be some DQs at the end, but I'd like to see some of these guys, Stewart and Max in particular, moving up on their own and getting some points on their own. We'll see how it flushes out when they cross the KOM, because you can make up some pretty good time in the middle there and not realize it.
Yeah, so meanwhile, the gap between the C's and the D's, I think, is now down to about 500 meters. We've definitely all regrouped, going down the main side of the KOM, and we're all bunched up again, and back to our rollers. But we will be out the forest before a massive amount of time, and back to the desert, which we all love, for a second lap. Gordon, we're at 17.3. How the front D's doing?
Not too far ahead. We're at 18.1, so we're over that KOM now, and that's not all the climbing though. You've still got those rollers out at Titans Grove, so you don't get a rest just yet. We've got Ian here. He's here with a couple of other riders. Brian Moran, which is another herd rider, and looks like a Japanese rider. Can't quite grab the name. Fukushima, I think. By the looks of it, though, neither of these will actually be competition for the overall. Japanese riders not on Zwift Power, and as I suggested earlier, Brian looks like he got promoted to Cat C just the other day. So whether he realises that or not, unfortunately, I think he's going to get disqualified from this race. But so yeah, looking good. 18.6 kilometers. You can see those C riders. The gap still appears to be about a minute and a half. So it'll be interesting whether those C riders manage to catch up with this group before the sprint. Otherwise, it might give some advantage to the riders behind, because certainly if you manage to jump on the tail of a moving Cat C peloton, you're going to get a good time through that sprint. And if these riders hit it alone before that, they'll certainly suffer in that sense. Although Ian, even alone, he hit the first sprint and he got a great time, managed to set first place. So at the moment, it's 3 riders off the front, a minute back to the next D group, and I don't expect, well, they might be able to pull up some pace. Likes of John Richardson and Ole look like they're in the group behind. If they can jump on the C riders' wheels, just as I have a quick look at them, because it looks like the C group is just catching them. They'll suspect the front C group's a bit too quick for them, so they probably won't manage to get onto their wheels. But we have seen that in earlier rounds of the herd league here. where the quicker groups catch, you can use them to bridge gaps in front of you. But looking good as we just come out of the desert. Just come out of Titan's Grove. But I suspect Ian might be sprinting this one alone at the moment, and just whether any of the other D riders can use the other groups to their advantage to get a better sprint time, as I can see Maureen passing there. How is the C groups? It looks like they're coming past the Ds now.
Yeah, we've actually got our first split. So Maureen is currently in the second group with Ben Knopfling for company, who appears to be on a TT bike. Not certain whether or not he might have changed bike on the pen, so we might not be able to see his actual bike choice on our screens here. But he's definitely showing up on a TT bike, and we've got a group of about 6 or 7 riders in here. They did try quite hard to chase the group in front, but it looks like that they're now pulling away. Can't quite see who's in that group at the moment, so I'm just going to have a quick look on Zwift Power, and it looks like Ben Poynton's in that front group. Alan Chevel's in there as well. Ryan Barber. Our group here are about 2 or 3 seconds behind. Actually, maybe even sort of 5 or 6. So it looks like we're probably going to stay apart as we head into the desert again. But yeah, over to you, Lee. What's going on with the bees?
So the bees have done the KOM. Looks like David Green took the top speed at 4:18, and our boy Max Schmansky took 7th with 4:20. So it was pretty tight there with the top, the top 10 from 4:18 to 4:22 was the numbers there. Our man Stewart crossed line at 5 minutes, so he was 24th, and he's running kind of all on his own right now. He's roughly about 40 seconds from the main group in front of him, so he's got some ground to make up, and we'll see if he can't maybe get a little drafting help from some of the breakers, some of the lower riders that break, and use that to his advantage and kind of catch back up to the group and make a go of it for lap 2.
Thanks, Lee. We're at 20.5k, and I think Gordon, you're a few hundred meters in front, and not a million miles away from the sprint.
We are not a million miles away. I can see that C group that's chasing them down is about 30 seconds back. Looks like they have possibly even an A rider on the front of that C group, so maybe that's why it's driving it's quite so fast. But yeah, 27, this gap's coming down. I suspect, I don't know if they'll quite catch them for the sprint. It's going to be very close, actually. We're at 21.1 kilometers, and from my notes before the race, it looks like we're about 22.2 for the sprint. So we've got about a kilometer, 26 second gap to the C group. This could work out perfectly if they just ease up and manage to draft with the front C group. They'll get a very good time through this sprint, and I don't think the rest of the Ds will come near them. But Ian is looking good at the moment. He's still got Brian and Kei Fukushima with him for company. They are doing a bit of turns each. I think they all know now that they're not going to get caught probably by anyone behind, so they're just taking their turns on the front, waiting for the sprint. Not going too hard. I can see Ian doing about 1.8 on the back of the little riders here. So as we're coming around the corner, there's still a 21 second gap to the sprint, so looks like he's going to be sprinting this one alone, but get back to me in a moment and we shall see.
Yeah, so Maureen's in a group of 7 or 8 riders here at 21.3 kilometers. We are just hitting the loop just prior to the sprint, and I have the sprint start at 22.2. So Gordon, Ian must be just hitting that very, very shortly.
It is. He's at 21.9. I'm just trying to get the distance as we go around the corner, make sure it's right. So I can see the previous sprint times coming up on the board, 38.04, so Ian definitely won that the first time round. I was just waiting to see here. So C riders, unfortunately, are about 12 seconds back, so he's not going to gain any draft from the C riders. Just as we're hitting the sprint, I can see Brian's gone into the red numbers, so this is good for Ian. He's going to get a good draft at the moment. Brian's sitting on the lead, 5-6 watts a kilo. Ian's also sprinting. Fukushima's not sprinting. He's doing about 3, but whether he's just trying to keep up with him. But as we coming halfway through the sprint. Ian's gone onto the front, so it's looking good. But Brian is fighting back there for the sprint, so it's going to be a close one. But I reckon Ian's going to take this. Still a couple hundred meters to go. It is a really long sprint at the moment, but no draft. So it depends if any of the riders behind, like Oli Kobalecki or John Richardson, might manage to get a good draft for the Sea Riders. So this could be interesting. But Ian's passed the line in first there. I can't see his time, but his previous time must have been better than that. So 38.4 on the first lap. Pretty sure he'd probably take that second lap at the moment. But yeah, how are the Seas? They must be right behind on the sprint.
Yep, they're on the sprint now. Marine's off the front. She's got Lisa Jones for company 3 minutes behind. Lisa's just overtaking along with Ben Knopfling. Marine's putting down the numbers again, just throwing down the truck behind Ben, which is a great move for extra draft. And she's got a couple of riders just coming through as well. Ben Knopfling, Scott Anderson, and Scott's got a massive sprint anyway, so it's going to be hard to catch. But doesn't appear to be any changes after the first lap's times in the sprint. So Marine's still showing as number 6 on the leaderboard, but I suspect she was potentially top 5 on the second round of sprints. But Gordon, we're now just hitting 23 kilometres, so we must be pretty close.
You must be. I was just having a quick look back at the group behind with both John and Ollie, and it doesn't look like they've really gone for the sprint, so they've certainly won't have beaten Ian on that sprint. But if I just jump forward, yeah, I can see Ian. He's got a few Sea Riders round about him now at the moment, so I can see, I think it's Chris Greenland right in front of him. There's that Zapata rider, I think he's the A rider that was running that group. So they're a bit strung out after that sprint, actually. You can probably notice that yourself there, but Ian does have good power on the flat, so I think he will be able to hold on to some of these Sea Riders through the desert, certainly till we hit Titans Grove again, so that will probably just push out his advantage. Looking at the other D Riders, I can see Brian is still there, just a second behind. Japanese rider is about 18 seconds back, so I suspect we might see Ian and Brian pulling away from the rest here, but it looks a bit of a mess at the moment. I don't know if you can see any Sea Riders. Are they still in a group, or it looks like everyone's just strung out all over the course after that sprint?
Well, I mean, I think the Sea Riders that you're seeing at the moment, the front group just in front of the one that we've been following here, Marine. So can't see the nearest Sea Riders are still quite a way up the road. I think Ian's still, according to Swift, he's still got about a 45-second lead. So I think the Seas have fallen quite a bit off the back of the ones in front. But I think Lee Levy, you're just about to hit the sprint.
Yeah, we're at 21.7-ish on the kilometers. The guys are really just running through the desert here, really close to getting to the second sprint. Looks like Max has worked his way back to the end of this front pack here. This front pack is about 11 deep of riders that are still all pretty tight together, and he's pretty savvy for a 54-year-old regular rider. He'll sit in the back and then take that draft, and he'll go forward for it. Looks like he's going for it now. He's ramping up at about 8.3 watts per kilogram, so he's starting to make his run for this and see if he can improve on his time. He was third on the first go at 35.53, so let's see where he finishes here. He's right in the middle of it, still pushing out 7.3, and he's got some orange numbers around him just coming to the end here. Let's see if he improves. No, he actually lost time there. He actually got bumped down to 5th. His 35.30 got bumped down to 5th, so a couple of guys came in and were able to actually improve on lap number 2.
Good work to all of them. Back with the Marines Group C's, we're well into our second lap now, just coming up to 25 kilometres. Still pretty much as we were, a group of about 7 or 8 riders. We've lost touch of the front group of C's a bit further up the road, who I think may be with Ian McClavity, Gordon.
Well, some of them are, but not many. Although Ian has found a friendly face in Ben Poynton here, so the two of them are stuck together at the moment on the road. At the moment, Ben's doing the work on the front. I should expect being a sea rider. But yeah, the seas there's a few other seas kicking around, although I'm not sure if Ben even himself wants to chase them down. A couple of them looks like they are Bs. There's possibly one sea rider that's in front of Ben that he needs to worry about. But at the moment, it's Ben with Ian on his wheel. I can see Brian just behind by a second. Whether he can close that gap to get back on, looks like he will get back onto Ian's wheel. So that'll leave the two of them fighting it out for that overall GC position. But he's looking good. Probably that chase group that Maureen and are still about 40 seconds back. So. And I suspect that gap won't close really much till we hit the actual Titans Grove. So at the moment, I think Ian will just be quite happy sitting on Ben's wheel, certainly till we hit the rollers again at Titans Grove. But all looking good at the moment for Ian, playing it absolutely perfectly.
Great stuff. We're just coming over one of the little ramps around in the sort of waterfall area. Just coming up to 26 kilometers. Still, as you were. I think we've got about another 10 to go until the second climb. So it's going to be pretty much all grouped up until then, I think. Lee, how are the bees looking? Are they still holding together?
Yeah, this front group is pretty well together. There's a little bit of a mix in here. You got a couple of sea riders that are hanging on for dear life to just hang with this group here. Max is right in the middle of this group, taking a little bit of recovery after giving I'm sure a heck of an effort on that last sprint. Even though he didn't improve his time, he was probably pretty doggone close. And that is a long sprint, and if you're putting out 7+ watts per kilo for that entire 350 meters, that'll sap the energy out of you. And these guys are already one lap in, so he's doing the smart thing and just riding in the middle of the group here, getting a little energy back. He's still running at 2.630, so bouncing back and forth in that range. So it's not like he's completely taking it off, but I'm sure he's trying to get his heart rate down. He's running at 150 right now, so looking really good. He's currently placed in 6th, so we'll see where he can get a good run on this KOM and get some more of those prime points, and hopefully he'll get a podium tonight.
Thanks, Lee. Just going over 27 kilometres with the Maureen's Group C's here. Gordon, I think Ian's about 35-40 seconds up the road.
Yeah, I still make it about 47 seconds, which probably was similar to what it was when you last came back to me. Still with this group, Ben's doing most of the work on the front, as expected, a sea rider, but Ian's had a couple of turns on the front and certainly looks like he's managing to sit in the wheel quite well, quite easily. He's certainly a good rider. Ride with him a few times on TTs, so at this pace, he's absolutely fine on the desert. I suspect he'll probably get dropped a wee bit when it hits Titans Grove, but at the moment, both Ian and Brian are sitting in Ben's wheel, just using that draft to take a bit of a rest. I'm just wondering if Ian's going to put his nose in the front. No, not quite. So that C group behind, it's actually the gap's going out the way again to 50 seconds. So it might be that Ben's trying to push a wee bit as well here to get away from that chasing group, because he certainly won't want whatever it is, half a dozen riders in that chase group catching him up. If he can stay away, it'll be a good advantage. But Ian's looking good. It'll be him versus Brian at this rate. Looking at Ollie Kobalecki, looks like he's probably a minute and a half or 90 seconds back now. Still sitting in a group with John Richardson by the look of it. So that looks like the chase group, but unless they get onto some sea riders' wheels, they're not going to close that gap at the moment. But looking good. I believe as I said, he's got the points for certainly the first sprint and KOM, and most likely I think he'll get that second sprint as well. So, and unless anyone really beats him on the second KOM, he's looking good for a gold place trophy, which get him some more points in the league. Currently sitting second behind Steve, so that'll be his aim to try and close that gap with Steve overall in the league. But looking good at the moment. How's the C group? It looks like they're actually drifting out further. I make it 55 seconds now.
Yeah, I think so. But they seem to have settled into a fairly steady pace around probably 2.5, 2.6. So definitely the lower sort of end of C, and I'm sure they're perfectly content doing that as well. But we're 5 kilometres out from the second classified climb. Got to go past a roundabout, the short climb out of the desert, but not a lot of action between here and then. But let's switch back to the bees and Lee Levy.
Bees are still hanging together here in the front there. That group of roughly 11 and a few C's that are in there. There's a larger group of some C riders that's about 50 seconds ahead. They're gnawing at these guys. They're just eating away at that time, and they're going to come up to them most likely in the roller section that's coming up ahead. We're still cruising through the desert. We're pretty close to coming out of the desert and the first climb into the Titans Grove area before we turn up for the KOM. But plenty of flattish road to just kind of get your motor in good shape and get situated so that you can make a good run, and hopefully around a 418 420 climb to get some of those prime points, because that's really what it's going to take to get in that top 10 section, is about a 420 or better, and that's pretty stout climb, let alone doing it for the second time. Currently, Max has now worked his way. He's actually the number 1 B rider currently.
Thanks, Lee. So we're now down to 4 kilometres before the final climb, and just to quickly touch on this group. So we've got Maureen, we've got Scott Anderson here, we've got Paul Lutman and Lisa Jones. Ben Knopfling's here as well. And then a little bit further up the road, we've got Alan Cheville and Ben Poynton, who are up with Ian McClamsey, who Gordon's been following. I think Alan Cheville's just a little bit off the back of that group. But we will fairly shortly be hitting a roundabout and then be able to climb up towards the forest area. Gordon, have your guys gone round the roundabout yet?
We literally just passed it, so it's just going to start ramping up at the moment. We'll just see if this manages to stick together, or whether Ben will start to pull away, or whether Ian and Brian behind will suffer behind him, or try and keep on. But I said that C group chasing behind the gap looks to be about 1:10, so they look perfectly happy leaving that group and not chasing it down. I can see other Australian Ben Knopfling's on the front of that group, so maybe he's happy leaving his pal out on the front and letting that gap grow. But as we're hitting this hill, certainly Ben Point is pushing up. He's pushing up nearly 4 watts a kilo, so it looks like Ian and Brian are probably going to get distance, so find themselves alone by the time we hit Titans Grove, because they're certainly not keeping up with 3 to 4 watts a kilo that Ben's pushing out. So although it was a good draft through the desert, I think that's going to be the end of it. It's just going to be back to Ian and Brian, so it'll be interesting to see how well they work together. Both herd members, but obviously both riding this for the points and for the GC, so they won't want to be doing too much work on the front one or the other. And certainly with some sea riders looking like they'll probably catch behind, so I suspect we'll get an easy pace till we hit the KOM. There's no point attacking each other probably too much at this point. There's not any D riders in close. Even the Japanese rider's about 50 seconds back now. Looks like he's probably with that chase group behind. But no, Ian's, they've certainly both been dropped. Ben's pulled out a gap of about 7 seconds, and I suspect we'll see Maureen's group and Ben Knopfling and whoever else is in that group chasing behind will probably catch them in the early stages of Titans Grove, I would have thought. Can you see them in sight yet? Are they approaching?
No, still about 45 seconds behind. We have just, or rather, we're just going over the first ramp out of the desert. So we're out of the desert now into sort of more grassier climbs. Still climbing, 2% gradient, but we'll be into the forest before too long at all. Lee Levy, whereabouts in the desert of the bees?
We just hit the spaceship turnaround, and we're heading now towards our roller dog paradise, and we'll be heading out of the desert here before long.
Very good. So everything could all be coming together before the end of this race. So we'll definitely be keenly looking to see where the bees are in relation to our C and D riders. But I think Ian McClovery's still got a lead of about 40, 45 seconds on our group of C's. We're currently 25 seconds behind Alan Chevel, and I'm guessing Gordon, but Ian's about 20 seconds in front of Alan.
By where Alan is, it's shown as 14 seconds on the official time, but as we all know, through rollers and hills and things, the time gaps do tend to sort of vary and go up and down. But yeah, 14 seconds at the moment. Looking back the way it's 30 seconds to that chasing C group. Ian and Brian are still stuck together. They are hitting the sort of ramps, the rollers a bit harder, going up 2 to 3 watts, but I don't think they're particularly attacking each other or anything yet. Just naturally, as you go over these rollers, you do push a wee bit more. So I think they're looking absolutely fine. Just sitting in, waiting for the KOM. That C group, I suspect they're probably going to catch towards the bottom of the KOM, which is probably not going to be the best time. They're not going to be much help on the KOM itself. It's more when you come down the other side and back out to the finish line. Although with only 2 riders here, you're not really racing against anyone else. It is sort of head-to-head here at the moment, Ian versus Brian. So we'll see how they get on. It will be interesting what C groups catch, or even I suspect the B groups will probably start to catch these lot, or even the A's. I'm trying to glance down and see where the A's are as well. They must be approaching the back end of the B's. So it could be very interesting by the end of this race. I think there'll be quite a mixture of from A's through to D cats all coming together. The last sprint doesn't count to the line, but obviously we will see them sprinting for overall GC position across that line to make the difference. But at the moment, Ian's he's just a second off Brian's wheel, but I think he'll close that gap down before he hit the KOM, and then they'll both be at it again to see how they get on. But yeah, how are the C's? Are they pushing on Titans Grove? Are they going to catch Ian before KOM?
I don't think so. I'm not even sure if they'll actually catch by the top, to be honest with you. So it's still about 45 seconds behind. We are getting brief glimpses of yellow dots on the mini map, but still quite a long way behind. And just coming up to 32.5 kilometers, so it will be very shortly hitting the KOM proper. Lee, whereabouts of the B's? Are they into the forest area now?
Yes, we are. We're 31.3 roughly of kilometers going in, so we're just into the Titans Grove area, and we're going to be heading up towards the KOM here shortly. We have still a pretty tight group at the front here of these B riders that are just killing it. I mean, there's still a good 11 riders pretty close together, all within maybe 2 seconds or so. And they're really starting to push it now. You're seeing some orange numbers pretty much settling into a roughly a 4.5 or so. And our man Max Schmansky's running in 9th currently. He doesn't proclaim himself a great climber, but he's a pretty good climber. So we'll see how he gets on with this KOM here. Hopefully for him, he can get some more GC points, then come out of the KOM and hit it and see what he does in the sprint for GC points to at the end there to get position. I'm really thinking that he's going to be in shape for a podium, at least a bronze today. But I'd like to see him get better.
Yeah, so back in the seats, we're well into the KOM now. We're slowly but surely catching on to the group of Ds in front. As we're saying, it's a 20-second gap. But whether or not that's accurate, Zwift sometimes struggles when it comes to hills. But it's saying, well, it was 20 seconds. It's now dropped down to 12. And by all accounts, we are catching up fairly quickly. Gordon, are you seeing that coming down pretty fast as well?
It looks like it's very quick. So the KOM looked like it started at 32.9 kilometers. It doesn't look like they're actually pushing it too much up here, but they have been going for nearly an hour now, so they're probably a bit tired. As you'd expect, they're not going to hit this KOM as hard as they did the first time round. So roughly going somewhere between 2 to 2.5 up here. You've still got Brian right with him, taking turns on the front. Well, probably not turns, but just having a push when either of them have got a wee bit of energy. But yeah, see that C group, the gap's down to about 3 or 4 seconds now, and by the look of it, they're doing 3 or 4 watts, and they're I suspect they're going to come flying past them in just a second. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no, that gap's disappeared in no time at all, and Maureen's group have just gone flying past Brian and Ian, and off into the sunset. And
On
we have
that, it does look like Ian has had a bit of a kick, so maybe he wasn't intentionally going a bit slower up the bottom part of that KOM, knowing the C's were coming. So I can even see him throwing down a feather power up now to try and get on the back of that C group. So if he can manage to do that, that's going to be a good advantage over Brian. But I can see both Brian and Ian are kicking to try and stay with the C group. But I think the pace might just be a wee bit too hot for this KOM, as we're not even at the steepest part of it yet. So might be a chance to look out for the next group coming, although that possibly might be the front Bs, so we shall see.
Yep, just hitting the first of the 3 hairpins now, so not too long left in the climb. Lee Levy, have the bees well onto the KOM yet?
Yeah, we're pretty well into it. Coming up to, I think this is the first of the real hairpins coming up. Max is currently in 10th position. There's pretty good break between him and the front currently. There's the next group up really of the front 4 or 5 is about 26 seconds up the road. So he'll have to make up some serious ground. And I know he's a good descender for sure. He doesn't, like I said, he doesn't compare himself as a great climber, but he's pretty darn good. He's throwing down just around 4 watts per kilo currently, so that's 350-ish watts for him. And this is something that he can do pretty much on the reg. So we'll see if he can make up some ground and come up with a decent time. His last time going through this section was 420.9, so that was good enough for 7th position. We'll see if he can improve, or if others improve, kind of like they did on that first sprint to the second sprint. We'll see how that works out. But we're probably about a minute and 30 or so from the finish of this KOM section.
Yeah, Caesar just going over the final hairpin. So in this group, we've still got Marine, Ben Knopfling is in there as well. Lisa Jones has been spending some time up the front, but Ben Knopfling is off the front again as we start to get towards a very, very pointy end of this climb. Ben's definitely holding down some big numbers, and Marine's just trying to get past him. Lisa Jones throwing down the arrow as well. Ben's got the feather. It's power up central at the moment. We are very, very nearly at the line. We can see it's about 200 meters away. Got Finney, Ben Knopfling just behind, Scott Anderson just pushing for the line again, and Scott takes over the line, Marine in second, and Alberto in third. It doesn't appear to be any improvements in the times, which isn't massively surprising, given we're 55 minutes into race and they've already done that climb once already. Quickly back to Gordon. How's Ian doing?
Yeah, so he's just approaching the top. He'll be there in, I suppose, about 10 or 20 seconds. Just had a wee bit of a kick towards the last sort of kilometre of that hill, so he's opened up a 2-second gap over Brian. Although I can see Brian pushing nearly up to 4 watts a kilo to try and close that gap down. But so Ian's coming over the top on his own. It's just whether he can stay away from Brian or whether that was just a push for KOM. But yeah, it looks like Ian straight away, he's dropped it straight back to 0 watts over the KOM. So I think that was just a push to get a good KOM time. I suggest he didn't beat the previous time, but I think that'll be pretty good overall for the KOM on the second lap round. So I suspect he might have won that one, but we'll have to wait and see. But we're back. Brian, this is nemesis this race certainly. They're back together, stuck on each other's wheel. It doesn't actually look like there's many C riders around either. The next group, I believe, they'll probably see, it could even be an A rider and the front Bs. So I suspect they'll come flying past as well. So at the moment, looks like it's going to be a head-to-head, Ian versus Brian for overall GC now, and see how they get on. Whether we get any early attacks through the rollers. I think it'll be a case of either attack now on the rollers to get a gap, or you're going to pretty much have to wait for the sprint at the end. And I've not actually had a look at their sprint powers. Just having a quick comparison, they do look quite similar on the sprint actually, so we could get a good head-to-head battle here for the line and the first place position overall. But yeah, How are I suppose, where are the bees, Lee? Are they hitting the KOM? Are they over yet?
Yeah, they're coming to Max just now crossed the line, and it does not look like he improved on his seventh place finish. He just popped a feather and sprinted at the end there, but it probably just was a hair off of the first one. So he was probably, I would say, probably a 422, where he was a 420 on this last round. Doesn't look like anybody really changed positions on this go around. Currently, Max is running in 10th position overall, so his seventh is going to be good if he can get top 10 for the second prime. That'll be a few more points in the bag right there as well.
Thanks, Lee. So we've had a bit of a split here. Lisa Jones and Maureen appear to have fallen off the back a bit. They're being kept company by Ben Knopfling, but it does look like we're going to have a split to the group in front of about 5 riders. So I'm not entirely sure if they'll have time to get back on or even the energy. But Maureen's definitely pushing hard. They are trying to get back, and whether or not they can is. We'll find out pretty shortly, but I think that they are gaining a bit of time back, so they might actually manage to regroup. And if they do, it's going to be a fantastic catch. But we have about 5 kilometres to go until the end of this race. And looking at the group in front, they've dropped one other rider who will probably rejoin with our group of 3 here before too very long. But I think we're not going to see the other 4 again. So looks like a further split in this race. Gordon, how's the 2-man battle going on in the Ds?
It's not too bad. It looks like Ian's actually managed to get a bit of distance in him, 2 or 3 seconds there. I did see Brian's power at 0 for a brief second, so whether that was a dropout or just as he was rolling over the top of a hill, but Ian has managed to get about a 3-4 second gap. He's not hammering away. He's still even doing below 2 watts a kilo here, so whether they'll group back up it's kind of hard to tell. Can see a good bunch of the B riders. That's probably Max's group catching up behind as well, so that might even be enough just to pull Brian back onto his wheel. But yeah, he's got about a 3-4 second gap, which is looking good. If he can hold that into the desert, I think he's got a good chance of keeping away, although it's so hard to tell with the chase groups coming through. They can easily pull riders up. But no one else around him at the moment. Brian is still pushing. I can see him pushing up 3 or 4 watts over the rollers. So it is a good chance to catch. As you were suggesting, they were Maureen. I mean, you really need to close down the gaps and catch them straight away. Because once you hit the desert, there's not much chance of catching anyone if you're riding in a group. But Ian is still pushing as well. So I can see him doing 4 or 5 watts over the rollers. Looks like he's trying to keep Brian at bay. So looking good. It looks like he might manage to stay away. If not, I think we'll be watching a sprint finish between these two, as the B group have got about 8 seconds behind, which I believe Max is probably in that group. I'm not sure. Lee, whereabouts are the B riders looking at?
Let's see. I'll give you a kilometer update here. Let me get to my handy dandy calculator. 23.8. So we're at 38.3-ish. Max is currently on his own, but there's guys not too. There's one guy that's 8 seconds ahead, and then there's another split up to about 25 seconds. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when we get out of the roller section here and into the flat, coming down for the sprint finish. But looks like Max is going to take the overall 11th position, I would say, at best. He's currently running at 8th on Swift Power, and then, of course, Primes will figure in after that.
Possibly Max might just be in that group behind us. A bunch of B riders pass Ian here, but I don't think there are going to be any. Ian's having a bit of a go to try and get on their wheel, even if it might give them a draft for 30 seconds. But he's
about. He's a little bit up ahead of Max. It looks like Ian is about 1:30 ahead of him. I see his power's going up. He's trying to catch on, but those guys are doing 4.2, 4.4 in front of him.
Nah, Ian's having a go, but there's no chance. No, he's just going to burn out if he does that. But he's still got a good 4 or 5 second gap over Brian now. So unless any other groups come up behind them, I reckon he might be a good chance of holding Brian at bay. So that might be the plan. Hit him now, and so he doesn't have to sprint against him via the end. So certainly keeping up the power.
Yeah, it's interesting in this group now. We've had the leading A rider absolutely storm past at the speed of light. Like literally 1 second he was gone. We've had the very front B rider a Struler. I think that's the Belgian flag. Who's joined this group now, and we've got our the other half of the split group from the Forest just now, who are about 13 seconds in front as we've got about 2 kilometers to go. So I don't think we will see them again. We had a couple of glimpses of them earlier, but I don't think we'll be seeing them before the end of this race. So about 2 kilometers to go. Gordon, have you got any company back there yet?
Nope, none at all. As I see, Ian's just completed his weekly goal, so well done, although he's still riding on. But no, he's got about a 7-second gap over Brian now, so he's looking very good. He's hit at 40.6 kilometres, which I believe the finish is about 43, just over. So he's got about 2.5 kilometres to go. And this gap, he's extended it a couple of seconds there, so he's looking very good at beating Brian. And looking back the way, I don't see any group that's going to help Brian to the finish. She looks like more like B riders running along at somewhere 4 or 5 watts a kilo. So I think they'll come flying past Brian and give very little draft or assistance. So even Ian's pushing up the power.
They're pretty good distance back too still. So they're about 30 seconds back of that group too.
He's up to 41 kilometres now. So only a couple of K to go. Looks like he's holding power very well. He's extended the gap to 9 seconds now. So looking good, even bumping up to 3 watts a kilo. Looks like he's just going to do an ITT effort to the line now and probably get first place. And I suspect maximum points on the primes and the prime KOM and sprint. So we'll have to wait and see. But looking very good at the moment. But yeah, how the seas must be approaching near the end now, James. How's it looking?
Yeah, we're just about 2/3 away from around the mini loop before we get onto the sprint, and so we'll shortly be hanging a right-hand turn then over the front sprint banner. That group of C's is actually only now 7 seconds in front, so they could actually come into play here. I said 7, it's now 6. We'll be hitting the sprint banner in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 now. Maureen's thrown down a truck. If she can get on the back of these guys, then there's definitely a good chance. The gap's now down to 3 seconds. So if anyone's got anything left for the sprint at all, now is definitely the time to use it. Maureen's currently sitting last wheel in this group of 4 or 5. She's up to about 300 watts, so she's trying as hard as she possibly can to pick up any places possible. Don't quite think we're going to recatch that group, but it's all very, very tight back here. Marine's still sitting in 14th place. She's trying everything to get over the line in front of Ben Knopfling and just manages it. So finishes 13th in the C's. Well done, Maureen. Another very credible performance from Lisa Jones just in front. Well done to everyone else who entered in the C's. Gordon, I think Ian will be next over the line.
Not far behind. He's just swinging around that last corner before the start of the sprint. He's actually looks like he's doubled his gap back to Brian. So he's got about 18-second gap. So he doesn't really need to sprint this last 500 metres, but I can see him putting in a bit of effort, or briefly. He seems to have calmed it down. But no, he's spiking up at 3 or 4 watts a kilo. So he's putting a bit of a sprint on. This sprint doesn't actually count for primes. It's only the first 2, so this is just sprinting to pass over the line GC. But I can see Brian is sprinting behind him, but with a 14-15 second gap. I don't think he's going to get close as we're halfway through the sprint section here. There's a couple of Bs flying around as well. It looks like probably Max is a minute back, so we'll cut to Lee in a moment just once Ian's passed the line. But he's just rolling over nice and easy. 1.5 watts over the line. Probably quite glad that he doesn't have to sprint. He's already put in his effort, but just as he approaches the line now at about 1 hour and 12 minutes. So well done, Ian. I think that'll be first place as we cut back to Max. How's he doing, Lee?
Well, Max must understand that this sprint doesn't count because he's rolling through it at a nice, comfortable, crisp 4.0. You know, nothing out of the ordinary. Just a regular 300, 400 watts. He's looking like he's going to take home 11th position on Zwift, and it looks like he's about 8th position currently on Zwift Power. And we'll see where he times out for his primes and where it all finishes up. There's some A's are storming up behind, and Max just crossed the line.
Well done, Max. And as ever, a big thanks to Damon for providing all of our pictures tonight. Thanks to my commentary team of Gordon Sloan and Lee Levy. Thanks to our riders, Max Szymanski, Maureen Finney, and Ian McClaverty. And Ed Finney, if you're listening, get well soon and come back soon. Thanks, everyone. Good night.